So now something I would like to add to our painting is some Viking style paint on this. So I will just make a very simple pattern like this, something like this, that I will paint and fill with a color. Okay, so what we will do now is just create a simple color mask in black and white that we will be able to use to add this color here, and we will make some kind of damages to the shield and to this paint using the AO and the cavity map. So in the UV image editor, I will create a new one, a new picture. We'll call this shield paint mask. I will keep the 2K map. So now in the UV image editor, I will select this texture draw mask for the time being and create a pure white color. And as a paint stroke, I will use the curve. When selecting the curve, you just have to press Ctrl and draw on your object. So I will press Ctrl and it will automatically place a Bezier point, and I will try to align with this here. So I'm just using the UV to guide my stroke. I want a nice curve from this point to this point. So I use a width of one face here, and so does here. And now I will reduce the radius to 5, and when I will press enter, it will paint with the texture draw with this white color with a strength of 1 following this curve. So I press enter here and you can see the painting. So it's really based on your point of view. So try not to move the camera that much. So I will get back here. Now I will select all the points and rotate them by 45 degrees. Oh, rotate again by 45. Paint. Sometime we will clear this. It's not a problem. Rotate by 90 degrees. So we will fill this area. So I don't know if we can use the fill brush actually. If he will use this border as a limit, like as in Photoshop. So I will just test it. Yeah, it does. I will press X. When you press X, it just switch of color here, like in Photoshop. So X to make this black. So I finished cleaning this mask. I will save it, pressing Alt S. Press Ctrl up arrow to get back to our point of view. Here I will get rid of the grease pencil and go back into rendering view mode, pressing Shift Z. Go into the node editor and I will duplicate this and load the mask. So now what I want is this white part. I want to give it as much variation as possible. So it will allow us to overlay color, mix RGB, overlay a reddish color upon our wooden color, like this. So first, to set your color here, if you want to keep a value that is decent between the wood and the paint, one of the problems in Blender is that the value here is not really working as in Photoshop. In Photoshop, when using overlay, you will try to keep the value at 0.5, so it won't add or multiply the base color. So here we will have to do it visually. So I think a value of 0.75 looks nice. And now I just have to play with the saturation So I will keep it like this. And the hue, you can make it green, orangey, etc. I like the red one, so I will keep it red. Okay, and now we will try to destroy this mask, make it uneven, make it using a bunch of map. So we are progressively building our map this way. So it might look kind of complicated or something, but if you do it in Photoshop, this is going to be pretty the same process, but you won't be able to use nodes. You won't be able to use procedural stuff as easily as in Blender. After Effects could also be a good way to cheat currently, but you can't really paint easily, or for me, you can't. I don't think you can paint easily in After Effects as in Blender or as in Photoshop. So we have this result here. Let's start with a simple noise texture. So texture noise here. I like the noise texture. So we'll use the factor and we'll increase the detail to the maximum. So 10, I think then you won't have really a big difference, and you just add some graininess to this. We'll add a converter or color ramp here just to contrast it a little, and now we can multiply this to our mask. So we'll have a color mix RGB here and use the multiply and check the output here. Little smaller. Here I have those nice effects, like it has been washed through the time. So yeah, this way is good. Okay, and that's gonna be hit for our noise texture. Now we will play with the cavity. So we will duplicate this and we will plug the cavity map into it. Oh, sorry, we will use the AO instead, which will be better. It will make the crease here losing the red color. So you can see it here. So we'll use a converter color ramp here. And finally, let's add also the influence of the cavity map, which is the finest details here. So here it's our hey-ho. And let's use the cavity map. We have also a color ramp. Let's check how it looks. So I've just duplicated the color ramp. We'll just import our normal map to give some more detail to our shield and start to understand how it looks. So it's pretty simple. Just add a texture image texture. And we will open the normal we have generated. Plug the UV, even if it's unnecessary, and switch here color to non-color. So I will keep it with color to show you the problem. Let's add a vector normal map. We'll plug the color into this slot. By default, as we have only one UV map, it will be selected. You don't need to select it. And we will use a shader, glossy shader, to see how our normal map is working. It will also affect the diffuse for sure, but it will be more obvious with a glossy shader here. So you can see the results. So we do have here an influence if I unplug it, but it might be kinda weird that we have this big change of directions here. And if I switch to non-colored data, tada, I get a way more expectable result than before. So you will have a normal slot only on shaders that make the color bounce. You won't have it on a transparent shader or an emission shader, for example. This kind of look nice. I just like to add some more scratches to the border of this paint to make it more irregular, but it does look pretty nice. So I will just show you how to add randomness to a painting. We will use a texture and we will play a little with the brush. So let's get back to the UV image editor. We'll just save this with another name. So I press F3 and call this mask 02. Save it. Now here, instead of Shift Z, I will switch to Alt Z, which is the texture mode. In the node editor, sorry, I will select this paint mask here so that I can see the result. And I will also switch here to the 3D view. So let's use texture paint mode. Let's press L while hovering over the wood area. Let's use the texture draw with a black here, and we'll create a texture to be painted. And we'll use in the brush mask, not brush texture, sorry. Brush mask will create a new texture. So I'm sorry, I set it to texture while I wanted a brush mask here. And we will use maybe a cloud texture. Yeah, cloud is cool. And make it more contrasted like this. So you can see now in my brush I have this this noisy effect that I was looking for. And now if you want some more randomness to your stroke, so I will get rid of the pressure here, just go here in stroke and you have those options, spacing. So I will push it to 100%. I will make a stroke. I keep my pen on the tablet, move, and every time I move with a distance of a stroke, so 100% of the spacing, it will create a new point. So let's set it to 20%, and then the jittering here will create a jittering stroke, so something a bit crazy like this. So I will keep it at 10 finally, and I will paint on the border here like this. I will set it to 0, get rid of the mask here, and enable the radius, and I will just paint some strokes like this, following the wooden the wooden pattern, sorry. So now that we have created our mask and set everything, what I would like now is give some shininess to our wood. So currently we will be shading the wood. So let's check how it looks here with our glossy BSDF. So by default, I always check with a 0 value to see how the environment is reflected. So as I see the environment reflecting on it, we'll be able to set the roughness scale. So 0 is currently really low. So I think a value of 0.1 for the brightest area like the paint will be nice, and 0.4 is really softened. So I believe for the wooden area it will look really nice. So we need to first mix those two shaders together. Even with a low value like 0.1, the glossy is kinda desaturating the object. So it may need to be a little, have a little influence from the color. So what I usually do is to add color RGB curve to my base color here and push it really high, like this, and use this color as the base color for the glossy, so that it does give the reflects some color influence. And I want the crease to be very rough, this surface to have a mid roughness, and the painted area to be the one with the lowest roughness, so that we have a nice difference. So we'll use this mask here that will allow us to set the lowest roughness, and also the different mask we have used, like the AO and the pointiness. So let's check our AO here. First of all, we will add a mix RGB here, and we'll input two values. The first one will be our lowest roughness, and the second one our highest roughness. Let's plug it into the roughness value of our glossy. Now to drive it, I want the AO area, so the AO is here. Let's add a converter color ramp. So I want the AO to drive the roughness. So in the crease here, the roughness will be of higher value. So to make things clearer, here I will invert the values. So the highest value, which is the highest roughness, will be in the dark area, as on the AO here, and the whiter will be the part that are the more glossy. So let's move this way and plug this here. Now what I also want is the influence of the mask. So where the white is, I want the value to be at the minimum. So let's color mix RGB our AO output with this mask. And this is pretty what I want. So we will use multiply. I want the areas that are not painted to be rougher than the ones that are painted. So the more I will increase this value, the rougher will be the not painted area. Pretty nice. let's check in mix. Yeah, it looks even like fresh painting here. And now we will also play with the factor. So we'll kinda use the same value here. So I will just add to this a little influence using the overlay from our pointiness. So here it is. So I won't push it to 1. I just want slight variation. Okay, so that it does give some more information to our roughness, but without being too much. So I have a bug here and I don't know why. Okay, flat. That's going to be better. I wasn't seeing the influence. Yeah, it looks way better here. So we might use this to slightly bump the wood and also as an influence. Yeah, looks really better here. So let's use our wooden pattern here to influence the paint. I have forgotten just before to use it. So Shift D here as a mask. We will plug it here and add a color ramp, because as it is a mask, it's working on black and white value, and we'll just keep the deepest crease like this. That's gonna be enough. So with these two values in mind, I will duplicate this, and then I will show you how to make a better node here for this. And we'll say that in the white part, the one that are higher, so I need, sorry, to recheck this. So the white one here, which is the lower one, will be 0.15 in the mixing here. And the darkest area will be 0.03. We'll plug it into the mix factor of the glossy and the diffuse. And now we have our wood shader that is done and looks pretty nice. I have a real difference between the painted area. So again, a bit too strong, but that's mostly for the sake of the tutorial so that you can see the difference. So what we are missing here is a bit of bumpiness based on those color value. That's a lot of things at the end of the day, and we have just set the wood with all of this. But once we are done, we'll make some cleanup and we'll be able to output some nice map and make a super simple shading node. Here it's kinda like in Substance Designer, we are kind of constructing a shader for our wood, and maybe you will be able to use it again later for other projects whenever you are creating painted wood or stuff like this. So we'll mainly duplicate this and mix them using the mask to create the metal part. So I think it will be way faster. So let's just add some bumpiness to all of this. To set the bump, it's pretty simple. Let's add a vector bump here. And in the bump node, you can see we have normal input here. So let's use the normal. And then with a black and white value, we will set bumpiness to this. So what I'd like is to have the painting that is kinda bumping up a little because it's another layer, and then have this layer of wooden just beneath. So we can use our mask here to do something, and we'll mix this mask with this wooden pattern. So let's add a color mix RGB. Let's put it here. Add our mask. And we will multiply the mask upon our base texture like this, and use this as the 8 of the bump. So when I Ctrl Shift click now, I can see the result. So it's very, very strong, but I can see here this sharpened area. So now let's reduce the strength to 0.1, for example, or 0.2 maximum. Yeah, 0.2 is a bit too strong. 0.1 was okay. And we can plug this into the normal of the glossy and the normal of the diffuse and check the results. We will now check how to make the metal, and finally we'll export all the maps. So now I wish we could make some cleanup of those areas. So first we will simplify those mixing value node with a simple trick I have already shown. You duplicate a mix color node or just add it, and you press Ctrl G to group it, and it creates a group node with only this node inside. Okay, and now in the input we will get rid of those two and add two new that we will call value and value, and plug them here. And in the output we'll do the same, get rid of it, add a new one and call it mixed value, and plug the color into it. Now when I get out of it, I've forgotten to give it a name. Name mix value and label mix value 2. And here in the node group, we'll call it mix value also. And now I have exactly the same thing as this, but in a single node. So I can call the, I can set this value to 0.5, this one to 0.1. Use the factor here in this and plug it to the roughness and get rid of this. And it's exactly the same result. And here duplicate it. Set the first value to 0.03, the second one to 0.15. Plug this here and use this for the factor. And now we have exactly the same thing, but with only 2 nodes instead of 6. Okay. So now let's make some cleanup. Here it's our paint mask. So let's collapse this. And you can select the whole node, press T, and in the node wrangler you have the option to frame the selection, and you can label it, so it's the paint mask, and you can set a color to it and a label size. All right.